City's fastest growing television news. News 11. With Paul Majors, Diana Pierce, Tom Reither on sports, and meteorologist Paul Douglas.
Good evening. It's still a shocking sight to see. The tornado ravaged northwestern suburbs. Homes were ripped apart by an incredible superstorm. It was a storm that took a human toll as well. At least 2 people were killed and many others injured. And across the metro area, there's water everywhere following an onslaught of rain from what's being called a once-in-a-lifetime storm. Good evening. The massive cleanup of the Twin Cities superstorm tops tonight's News 11.
Much of the state is considered a disaster area after the storm that tore apart and drenched the cities.
It may be weeks before any disaster aid from the federal government reaches Minnesota. The Director of Public Safety, Paul Cheetah, declared Minnesota a disaster area, calling for federal help. The money is needed for those flooded out by the all-night downpours that came from an incredible stalled storm that also brought several tornadoes to several suburbs. Officials from the city of Maple Grove, hardest hit by the twisters, got a ride in Sky 11 this afternoon. They needed to see just how bad the damage is from up above. Maple Grove is trying to determine how much aid the city needs to help residents get their lives back together.
And the disaster is far from over in Maple Grove tonight as the threat of looting keeps police on standby.
News 11's John Stone joins us live from the latest from Maple Grove. John?
Well, Paul and Diana, this is one of about 100 homes in the area that was damaged. There's not only wood and glass lying about, but personal items as well, a looter's paradise. But because of checkpoints like this at each entrance to the area, the folks here feel safe. Scores of people who live in and out of the damaged area are milling around looking, but police say they're accounted for.
We'll just, if you come back tomorrow, they'll sign you through and just check where you're going. Okay. You'll get the address where you're going.
Guards are patrolling the area all night to make sure what's left of these homes isn't stolen.
I never saw anyone around here that I thought was threatening.
You gotta have a pass to get in here.
Do you like that idea?
Yeah, it's good. More people in here just makes it harder to do anything, you know?
The owner of this home had 2 truckloads of furniture to save. It sat exposed all night, but only his family and friends are allowed around to help. Now, the folks here say even without these mandatory ID passes, even without the police protection, they feel safe because their neighbors are so trustworthy. But Paul and Diana, when police protection goes away, looters tend to have a way of showing up.
John, how long do the police plan to continue their patrols?
Well, they say that as community interest here dies down and as the people collect their goods, they'll begin to move out. So that might be a couple days or so. Back to you.
Thanks, John. In Brooklyn Park tonight, a number of families are trying to sort out pieces of their lives scattered by last night's tornado. Dan Demmer and his wife were selling their home when the twister hit. The closing date was next month. Now they're hoping to persuade the buyer to continue with the deal.
Evidently, they still want to buy it, but, you know, I'm sure we're going to have to do a little bit of dealing with that.
The Demmers still have no idea how much damage was done, and the insurance adjuster will take another look tomorrow.
The floods in the Twin Cities have claimed the lives of at least 2 people. Rescue crews pulled the body of 78-year-old Harold Burnside out of his South Minneapolis basement. He'd been trapped since 11 o'clock last night when the waters rushed in and a wall collapsed on him. Burnside's wife watched from across the street as crews retrieved the body of her husband.
I just said to all these ladies, it must be somebody else. It's so hard to realize that it's one of your own.
Burnsides had lived in the South Minneapolis home for 25 years.
A Hopkins man is dead tonight after he drowned in the floodwaters of 9 Mile Creek. The current of the swelled waterway submerged the victim's car, washing it away late last night. Efforts to rescue the man failed. As floodwaters receded today, some of the cars that washed away reappeared and the damage was very apparent. In Minnetonka, a storm-related accident has a motorcyclist in serious condition tonight. Rescue crews worked to stabilize the cyclist who slid in mud near Highway 12 and Plymouth Road this afternoon. The cycle hit a concrete divider, and the man remains in intensive care tonight at North Memorial Hospital.
Tonight, 3 young canoeists are alive because of the fast action of a group of men who spotted the boaters in trouble. The girls were paddling the canoe on 9 Mile Creek in Bloomington. Their canoe made a 90-degree angle downward into the water. 3 men jumped into the creek's current and brought the canoeists to safety. And the scene tonight along the flood-ravaged 9 Mile Creek isn't getting any better. The waterway has risen dramatically, and as Melissa Young reports, crews were called into action.
The city of Bloomington provided the sand and the bags. friends provided the helping hands.
3 doors down, I think. I think that's where they use the most now.
This emergency sandbagging party is a last-ditch effort to save these homes from rising floodwaters.
Called Sue this morning and she says, "You've got to see my yard. I don't have one." So we came down to see it, and this is what we found. And I panicked, because I know how far their lawn actually goes out there.
Debbie Krieg rounded up friends from St. Luke's Lutheran Church to help residents along 9 Mile Creek Circle.
My husband's incapacitated at the time. He can't even walk around outside. And to have them come and offer to do all this is absolutely wonderful.
Even though it hasn't rained for almost 24 hours, 9 Mile Creek has continued to rise. The reason, weather officials say, is because it drains a large area that includes several lakes and swamps, so it'll crest much later than the rest of the floodwaters. At Bush Lake Road, runoff from the creek has closed I-494.
It's actually going down. That red pickup that's down there, when I first got here, it was up to the windows. Now it's about 8 inches below there.
Even with that, it could take days before this area is back to normal. Melissa Young, News 11, Bloomington.
Tonight in West St. Paul, hundreds of people devastated by the storm are still cleaning up. In West St. Paul, every basement in the 400 block of Ruby Street was flooded. Crumbling roadway still marks the path the storm took last night, a storm that will leave its mark for some time to come.
We're complete loss. We don't have any insurance. Our insurance doesn't cover floods. So, starting over.
Meantime, residents of the Delaware 1 apartment complex are cleaning out their pool area. Debris also flooded the lobby, but no one was hurt.
A giant mudslide is keeping a home builder and Eden Prairie authorities on edge tonight. A house under construction is teetering on a bluff above a landslide triggered by torrential rains. 90 feet below, gushing sewage is making its way to the Minnesota River following a sewer line rupture. Authorities are still on the scene tonight assessing the damage. And in Bloomington, a mud pile and a platform is all that's left of a ski jump following the torrential rains. What once was a man-made slope is now a Mother Nature-made heap. Part of the platform skiers jump off stands alone at the top of the mound.
Pumping out their basements or finding a run on sump pumps at local hardware stores. At some locations, the pumps are selling so fast, stores can't keep up. The floods filled hundreds of basements across the metro area.
The superstorm of the century hit a lot of people very hard, but still some are laughing in the face of adversity. People who live in the Woodgate subdivision in Minnetonka invited neighbors to go boating tonight after the backyard pond turned into a lake.
We really don't know what to do. See, there really isn't any rules. There's not a little booklet you can read and say, oh, what do you do now? So we just have fun and let the water go down.
The waters will have to subside 12 feet before things are back to normal. In the meantime, these flood victims have decided to drown their sorrows in champagne. The storm has taken its toll on the Southdale Mall tonight. Water gushed down the stairs covering the ground floor this morning. Shopkeepers closed their doors to customers, but employees showed up to clean the mess the storm left behind.
I tell you, it's a disaster. One whole department is totally ruined, and it's just gross.
Ceilings gave way and thousands of dollars worth of merchandise was damaged. Many of the smaller shops may not be able to reopen tomorrow. Across the street, the First Bank of Southdale also closed its doors to customers. The bank sustained heavy water damage, but no records were destroyed. They'll reopen Monday. And in Richfield, the Northwestern Bell Directory Assistance Center closed for the day, and that caused some delays for people trying to get through to an operator.
The power is still out in many Twin Cities homes tonight. NSP officials say...
Near Tracy Avenue in Edina, traffic was moving this afternoon, but it looked like cars were crossing a river instead of a road. Cars sent cascades of water down into the already full ditches on either side of the road. Most drivers, though, seem to be glad just to be able to get through.
Well, Paul Douglas joins us right now, and tonight you had it relatively easy compared to this time last night.
Very tame tonight. The flood of '87, I guess we are all survivors. A couple of interesting facts with which you can impress your friends and amaze your neighbors. 10 inches of rain. Now, here's what it equals out into. 170 million gallons of water on every square mile. 170 million gallons of water. 10 inches of rain would weigh 720,000 tons. Now, that's 7,900 railroad cars full of water, each square mile of the Twin Cities. That's 7 million bathtubs full of water. Something to think about. Now we know why there were so many problems. Unbelievable. Well, for many years now, meteorologists have been warning that many urban areas are possibly prone to this kind of flooding. The reason? Urban sprawl. The expanding carpet of concrete and asphalt. Shopping centers, parking lots have been expanding into the farmland. There's simply less land available for the rainwater to soak into. Thus the problems. The water immediately ran off into storm sewers and streams and streets. Here's what it looked like on Doppler around 7 o'clock. We took a picture every 10 minutes. A rather spectacular sequence. You can see the storms that did produce funnel clouds and tornadoes across Hennepin County, at least 8 touchdowns. What is extremely unusual is to have the same storm complex producing tornadoes and flash flooding. Usually tornadic thunderstorms move east or northeast at about 40 miles an hour. As long as the storms keep moving, usually you don't have flooding. In this case, the storms first produced tornadoes, and then as they began to move east, new storms took their place. Something called a steady state storm system. You usually get them in hilly areas, mountainous areas of the Rockies, not so much in the upper Midwest. A bizarre pattern, but because of this steady state storm, the storms remained right over the metro. Look at that. Just to the west, just to the south, zilch, nothing. Right over the metro area, as much as 10 inches of rain fell. It was an unbelievable storm indeed. Time for me to take my walk into the backyard. Nothing too ominous out there this evening. The storm did crack a few windows here in the backyard, knocked over some of our monitors. Could have been a whole lot worse. Earlier today in the backyard, we had enough sunshine this afternoon for 80. Statisticians take note. Check out this graphic, this computer graphic. There does indeed seem to be a local tornado outlet. Did you notice most of the touchdowns, again, late yesterday, were west of the cities? For some reason, tornadoes like to touch down in a band from about Waconia to Minnetonka, Medina, Fridley, and Anoka. We don't know why. It may be the urban heat island effect, the fact that the Twin Cities are hotter and drier, and that tends to deflect tornadic thunderstorms off to the north and west. Interesting.
Tonight on News 11 Extra, we answer some insurance questions for homeowners and renters whose property was damaged by the summer superstorm. Action 11's Mike Igo reports on some of the things you should do now before you file a claim.
It looks like something out of an Irwin Allen disaster movie.
Tommy Kramer's comment says it all as he surveys the flood damage to his Minneapolis apartment. Tommy thought he'd find comfort and replacement cash from his renter's insurance. Not so. Generally, to get that protection, you have to have federal flood insurance. As a rule, the feds don't classify groundwater runoff as a flood. That's the key to insurance coverage. Not just what is damaged, but how it happened and what your insurance contract says. So whatever your storm circumstances, a few tips to help the insurance process. Now, wind damage usually is covered, but to help your case, you should first immediately secure your property the best you can to prevent further damage, including vandalism. Those expenses can be submitted as part of your claim. And
don't throw anything away until you have a record of it. You must prove you owned your property before you can collect an insurance claim for obvious reasons. And the way to do that is to have a written inventory. If necessary, take pictures of the stuff so that you can show I was throwing away my couch that was obviously wrecked.
Now, car damage from water probably is covered, but you can speed up the claim process by doing all you reasonably can to get it back in service. If the work has to be done professionally, go ahead and get a couple of estimates yourself. That might get you back on the road faster. But whatever kind of damage you've sustained, the cardinal rule in all cases is to keep receipts. This is Mike Igo, News 11.